Good afternoon, everyone. So I am Ameya Karkare. I am a faculty in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering. Okay. So this is a system that we have developed for introductory programming assignments, and this will be the first time when we are using it outside CSE department and testing it. So your course may not qualify as an introductory programming course, but the idea is that you cannot do very complicated tasks, but at the same time, any task that can be done with a single programming file can be handled by Prutor. Okay, so the system is called Prutor, and Prutor stands for Programming Tutor, and it's an online system, which means you access it using browser. Okay, so the Prutor system itself, we will share the IP address and login details with you. Okay, so once you reach this address, you get a login page which looks like this. Okay, so you have to log in with your email ID. So once you log in, assuming some event is going on, some lab is scheduled, you will see a screen which looks like this. So on front page, you see an ongoing event, okay, which is the events arena. So it gives you questions which you have to solve. It gives you certain statistics, like how many problems you have already submitted, how many problems you did not submit, and number of events that have already finished, okay, other things. It also gives you the grade card, which means the marks that you obtained in previous assignments. And then it has links to some other arenas like Codebook Arena, Practice Arena, and Scratchpad Arena. I will discuss these arenas in details, one after the other. So first, let's look at the Codebook Arena. So this is a place which maintains the history of your interaction with Prutor, which means you have a place to hold all practice problems that you solved and all event problems that you solved during the course. So all the problems that you submit in labs, you can see here. So lab problems that you did not submit will not appear here. So in the picture on the right, this code book is blank because the user has not done anything. We'll see later something where things have filled. Okay. The other thing is events arena. So this is the events arena, which says the name of the event and the questions that are scheduled for this particular event. And this arena is visible or active only when a lab is scheduled. So assuming you have your lab timing as Thursdays 3 to 5 p.m., only during these 2 hours this arena will be populated. Otherwise you will see that there is no event scheduled right now. Okay, so whenever time gets over, this arena becomes blank. So in the right, we have an ongoing event whose name is test 1, and then there are 5 different programming problems, each of marks 20. Then for any problem, you can start programming by clicking on Start Coding button. Okay, it's not necessary to go in the order. You can choose any problem, your lucky number first if you want. Okay, and the moment you click there, you will get this code editor window. In this window, you have the problem description on the left. Okay, so this is a dummy problem description. In your case, it will be a Python problem statement. You have an editor where you can type in your code. And once you have done your work, whenever you wish, you can save your code by using Ctrl S or by using File, and then there is a Save menu. Okay, so you can use either of the way to save your code. The code editor itself also saves your code every nearly 10 seconds. Okay, but don't depend on it too much, because this is like a event in case of your machine going down or network connectivity failure. This may not work as expected. So make sure anytime you make some major changes to your code, you save it manually using Ctrl S. Okay. Once you have saved your program, you are satisfied that okay, this might work, you have to execute it. So once again, the options are very easy. You click on Run, and that will give you an execute option. Okay, so even if fonts are not clear, you can use the demo later. So execute option will run your program. However, you have to have inputs ready in case you want your program expects some input. So one of the limitations of Prutor is all the inputs must be given before you start executing the program. Okay, It's not interactive in that sense. It cannot ask you for give me one integer or give me one floating point number. No. Okay, so you have to provide all the inputs before executing the program. You provide it in the input panel on the right hand side, okay, the bottom part. Here you can type in anything that you want, and after you have given input, you can press the execute button. Okay, when you press execute, Prutor will run your program in the background, and after finishing the program, it will give you a green go ahead if your execution went fine. Okay, and in that case, the output will appear in the output tab on the right. Okay, in case something goes wrong, you will get an exception error here itself. Okay, so this is the output tab, and by default it will switch to output tab. You don't have to click it. If run went fine, then the system will automatically switch to output tab. Okay. Now after you are satisfied with the execution with certain inputs that you provide, you can also test your program on instructor provided inputs. So to make sure that you have understood the problem statement correctly, your output follows the formatting rules and all, we will provide certain output or certain test cases of our own. So you can use evaluate option in the run tab. Okay, in this case you don't have to provide any input. Okay, in this case it will pick up the inputs that we have given, instructor has provided, and run your program on all inputs. So run and then evaluate there. Evaluation refers to running the program on test cases given by the instructor, so you don't have to worry about giving input. Evaluation results are displayed on the left column, which is named tutor. Okay. Once again, if after evaluation, the focus will automatically switch to this tab. Okay. If you want to change, then you can change explicitly to problem tab where problem description is there, and similarly you will see some icons in execution tab, which you can figure out what they mean using the legends tab. Okay. So you can see some test cases, but because you know that if we show you all the test cases, then we are revealing all our cards. You can always write an if then else to pass all the test cases. So we will keep some hidden test cases also. For hidden test cases, we don't tell you what is the input and what is the expected output. Okay. For hidden test cases, we will just tell you, okay, you have passed 5 out of 7 test cases, nothing more than that. For visible test cases, we tell you the input that we give, the output that we expect, and the output that your program has generated. Okay, so this is the difference between visible as well and hidden test. Okay, so in this case, our program passed all hidden test cases. Okay, so don't worry about the fact that there is C++ program here. This is just a demo lab. Okay. The important thing is you can evaluate your program as many number of times as you wish. Okay, we don't put any restriction. This allows you to keep correcting your program. So if you have a complicated program to solve, complicated problem, then you can solve certain cases, run your program, make sure they are correct, and then only move on to the next scenario. Okay. If your program passes all test cases, then you get a green notification on the right hand side saying all your test cases passed. Okay. Again, take this with a pinch of salt. This only says that all the test cases that we provided are passing, which means your program is very likely to be correct. There can be instances when we have missed some corner case and your program does not work correctly. We might evaluate on these corner cases later also. So don't just depend on this green signal. You also verify your program with some other corner cases yourself. Okay. The most important part after all this is submitting your code. Okay. So if you do all the steps that I described till now, but then did not submit your code, then that's a problem. So you submit your code using file and then submit option. You can submit your code multiple times. We do not stop you from that, but you have to submit it at least once, because instructor can decide against not evaluating or not grading us assignment which is not submitted. So it's like doing an assignment at hostel and then not turning it in to the instructor. Okay, so submission is a necessary thing. you have to submit it, and you can submit your code even if all the tests are not passing. Okay, so if you pass some 70% of the test, time is running out, please submit your code. We will evaluate partial code as well. Okay, so do not forget to submit your code before the event ends. After event end, you will not be allowed to submit it. Code that is not submitted may not be graded. Okay. And in case you submitted multiple versions, we will evaluate or grade only the last submitted version. Okay. So submission is a kind of declaration from your side that your code is ready to be graded. If you don't submit it, we don't have that declaration, so we cannot grade it. Because otherwise you can always come back and say, oh, I did not mean it to be graded. Okay. To submit, click on submit option on the file tab. So you are sort of encouraged to use IDEs like Anaconda or Spider or some other Python editors to try your programs offline as well. Okay. So if you are used to that, you can even upload your code using upload button. And if you are happy with your program, you want to show it to others, you can download it using the download button. Okay. But we again warn you against sharing your code with each other during the event duration. Okay. You can do all this after your work is over. Okay. So please don't copy, and again, depending on requirement, we can even disable these buttons. Copy paste also works in code editor, so you can manually copy something from one window to other. Okay. Use this feature also with responsibility. Only copy paste your own code, not others. All right. Okay. So once you submit your code, a tick mark appears against the problem that you have submitted. So in this particular page, we have submitted question 2 and question 3, but let's ignore that. Okay. So this is just to tell you that, okay, this problem you have solved, now move on to the next problem. When you are close to the end time of your lab, the event will also end. Okay. So just 30 minutes before event end, you will get a warning. You will get a message saying that the event is about to end in 30 minutes. And 5 minutes before time gets over, you again get another warning message. Okay. So when the time is up, you will get a notification and you will not be allowed to edit the code anymore. So make sure few minutes before lab time ends, you at least submit all the incomplete solutions as well, so that we grade something. And once event time is over, you will be redirected to the home page, which will no longer have the event in the event arena. So this is where you will come back after event gets over. You can view your submitted code in the codebook section after event is over. So while event is going on, your submissions will not appear on codebook. After event is over, it will be visible on codebook. Okay. Once the grading is done, so grading will not happen automatically. We have to schedule it and do it. Once grading is done, you can view your marks by clicking on the grade card. Okay. So this is how it will look like. When your question is graded, the marks are shown in the grade card. In this particular case, only question 2 is graded. Other questions are either not graded or not even submitted. Okay. So this is how the code book will look like after you have done some submissions. You will see the event name, and once you click this small triangle on the event, it will show you all the problems in this particular event. Okay. So unfortunately, to fit it, I have made it very small, but these are different problems that I solved during this event. On right hand side, I can see the code that I submitted. Okay. You can view the evaluator's remark at the bottom. So after grading is done, we ask our TAs to also provide some feedback about your code. So you will see that here. And you can ask for regrading of your submission by using this request regrading button. Okay. So it is possible for you to request for regrading in case you are not satisfied with the marks that you got, but we ask you to provide certain justification or some kind of hint why you think your marks are not proper. Okay. Prutor supports something called practice arena. Practice arena is to practice yourself during non-lab hours. Okay. So you can reach there by clicking on practice on the top right hand side. In this case, you get identical code editor that you get during lab events. Okay. So in practice arena also, the settings are very similar to what happened in the lab scenario. Only difference is you don't have to submit the problem. Okay. It is for you to practice. We don't grade it, so you need not submit it. Okay. But you can execute it, you can evaluate it, because these practice problems are also set by the instructor, and he will also provide certain test cases. Okay. The code in practice arena, as I said, is not for submission. Another related thing is scratchpad. Suppose you come across some interesting problem and you want to solve it on your own in the Prutor system. Since instructor did not anticipate it, he or she cannot create the problem for you. In this case, you can use this scratchpad to create your own solution. Okay. In this case, questions are not provided by the instructor, which means you have to create a file, start writing code in that. You get the same code editor, but in this case you cannot evaluate your submission because question is not provided by the instructor, which means test cases are also not provided. Okay, so we don't provide any test case, so you can only execute on your own input. So important thing that I mentioned earlier, Prutor does not support interaction. So you cannot interleave input and output. You cannot ask user for input and expect Prutor to wait for your input. Okay. So we cannot expect Prutor to say how many number of sides you want to give. Okay. So you have to provide all the expected input values before running the program. This is very, very important. Okay. Secondly, our evaluation system uses simple difference of expected output and actual output. So you have to take care of spaces and new lines. You have to kind of match output format exactly as required by the problem statement. This part we are enhancing because in Python you will be doing lot of floating point computation, which is not exact. So we will in fact use evaluation mechanism where we can have some range of output rather than an exact output. Okay. But even then, make sure, try to match output as much as possible. Okay. So print only what is mentioned in the program statement. Don't put extra debug information. Don't print prompts. Okay. And take care of spaces while printing your output. Okay. So Prutor as of now for Python, it is supporting all libraries that are required for this course, in particular matplotlib, scipy, numpy. Since these libraries have to be explicitly installed, we might have missed one or two. So if you face any issue with import of any standard library, let us know, we can install that for you, okay, with permission from the instructor. And Prutor also supports plotting in a restricted way because it's browser based thing, it cannot open X display. So what we do is we generate a URL where the plot will be stored, and then you can click on that URL and look at the plot. Okay. So we will give you some sample code which will tell you how to run this plotting, how to use this plotting support. Okay. So thank you. Any questions at this point? Otherwise I will show you some demo. So I have some problem scheduled for myself. Okay. So for my arena, I have two problems which I am supposed to work on. I can click on Start Coding button. And again, the problem statement and code that I am showing is just for demonstration purpose. Okay, so the problem here asks me to integrate fx from some point A to some point B, and I am expecting A and B as input. So in this case, the idea is to integrate a function from some lower limit to upper limit. The code, you assume that I typed it just now. In fact, I have deliberately added some error here. Okay, so this is the code that I try, and once I am happy with this code, I can test it. So it expects an input A, the input B, and number of steps that you want to use for integration. So I have given all 3 inputs and executing it. Okay, so let's say I am happy with the answer, it may not be correct. So now I am evaluating it with the instructor provided inputs. So I have deliberately introduced an error here. So I can see that my answers are not matching instructor's answer. Okay, so all my answers are wrong. So what did I get? I get lot of these red or pink boxes. So this pink box tells me that on input number 1, which was A was 1, B was 2, and number of steps is 100, the expected output is 2.3335, but my program generated output as 0. And these 2 outputs did not match. Expected output and actual output did not match. So my program actually has failed on instructor input. Same thing about other 2 cases. Okay. This case also it has produced a wrong output, this has also produced a wrong output, and in particular it has also failed on the hidden test case. Okay. So now I have to debug this. So Prutor does not have debugging capabilities. You have to read your code, understand it, and fix it. So the error in this case is that I have put a wrong limit on A. Okay, so I somehow by mistake I hard coded it to 2. Okay. So then I can execute my program again on the given inputs. In meantime, I can tell you there are a lot of shortcuts which can be handy. So you can use certain shortcuts like Control X for execute and Control E for evaluate, Control S for save, and so on. Okay. And now I got another output. So now I will go back and evaluate my submission. So I want to evaluate my submission. There are other small things. For example, this thing tells me when was my code saved last. Now my test has passed, my submission has passed all 3 test cases, and it has also passed the hidden test case. Okay, so which means I am ready for submission. Still I would urge, if you have time, always read your code, and once you are ready with your submission, you can submit it. Okay, so after submission you come back to the main page, and this is showing that my code has been submitted. Okay, in the second problem I am showing you how we plot something. Okay, so again the actual problem statement is not important here, but Prutor supports this NumPy library as well as, so it supports matplotlib and it supports pyplot. So anyone who can use these 2 libraries can use them on Prutor. Only difference is, first thing, you cannot use X backend of matplotlib, so you have to have these 2 lines that you have to use this X backend. Okay, and we'll discuss this in more details in class. And secondly, you have to also include or import a library called prutorlib, and the final plotting should be done using prutorlib library, so which is pl.plot. So this is the command that you have to use to save your plot. Okay, we cannot run it, so we cannot display it directly. So in this case, you get a plot which is generated at certain URL. So just have to copy this URL and view it in another tab. So this is how your plot will look like. Okay. So you can just change things. So for example, I can, instead of x cube, I might want to just plot y equal to x. And it generates a new URL every time you run the code. Okay. And Prutor will support all formats like SVG, BMP, PNG, and so on. Okay. So corresponding URL will be generated for you. So thank you.